logged in or logging in soon. We are here for Fellow Fireside Chat using the essential skills on the pathway to college. So before we get started, just because you are seeing two people close together, this is my roommate and coworker Claire, and we live and work together. So we have also both been vaccinated recently, so we are able to be unmasked within 6 feet, which is a really
3 feet now.
3 feet now, so it's really nice to be able to take off our masks for just a minute. So my name is Rose. I forgot to introduce myself. I am the CFES Garrett Fellow at Willsboro. I'm originally from East Burke, Vermont, a little tiny town across the lake, and I went to the University of Vermont. I was a psychology major, minored in human development and family studies and animal science. And the University of Vermont, or UVM, is a fairly small, about 13,000 students, state school in Burlington, Vermont. And I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Claire. I am also a CFES Garrett Fellow at Willsboro. So if you go to Willsboro, you often see us hanging out together and facilitating things together. So I use she, her pronouns. I went to Colgate University, which is a small liberal arts school in Hamilton, New York. So if you were tuning in from Essex like we are, it's about 3.5 hours drive. It's south of Syracuse, New York, so right in the middle of upstate New York. I studied Peace and Conflict Studies and Latin American Studies at Colgate, but I did take a few education classes, which is how I ended up here. And I think that about covers it. So like Rose said, we're going to be talking a little bit about our pathways from high school to college. We've had different experiences, I would say, which is good. So we can give you insight into a few different ways to tackle this goal, as we will get into with our essential skills. Before we get started, I want to do a quick land acknowledgement. So on the shore of Lake Champlain, we are on the unceded territory of the Mohawk, Wabanaki, and Abenaki people. We know it's been a long year for everyone. We're coming up on a lot of pandemic anniversaries, which is what a lot of people have been talking about lately. For us, we just passed the anniversary of when we were sent home from our senior year of college, so we got a lot of Snapchat memories from that of 1 year ago today. But I think we're around the corner. We've been mostly in person at Willsboro this year, with the exception of a 2-week period after the holidays. But just to say, we know that your situation, if you're applying to college now, might be a little bit different than ours was, but hopefully we have some general advice for you that will help you out.
Absolutely. And so CFES has 3 core practices, as many of you know: mentoring, pathways to college and career, and the essential skills. The essential skills are we're going to focus on the most today, because we think that they apply in all of the steps in getting to college. And it fits in well a lot with our Garrett objectives as well. So as part of our Garrett grant, we focus on STEM education, overall academic achievement, and making sure that students are successful in the classroom and doing what we can to help improve that, and civic engagement as well, making sure that our CFES scholars are prepared, good, helpful citizens.
Informed citizens. Yeah.
Informed citizens, that's the one. So, I hope you all know all 6 essential skills, but in case you are maybe not affiliated with CFES, or you need a little refresher on the essential skills, we're just going to quickly define each of them and kind of how you might use them in life. So the very first one, and perhaps one of the most important ones today in our conversation, is goal setting. Goal setting is figuring out what you want, and then once you have figured out what you want, how you're going to get there, what steps you'll need to take in order to achieve that goal. The next one, teamwork. There is pretty much nothing you can do in life where you won't have to work with others in some way. And so teamwork is working together to achieve a common goal. And it can mean working with people that you maybe don't like as much, or working with people from a different background, but teamwork is just working together and supporting each other. In a team, you often have a leader, so leadership is another essential skill, and there are lots of different types of leaders. There are what I like to call loud leaders and quiet leaders, and so loud leaders tend to be those people that take more charge and often delegate, ask people to do different things within the team. And then there are quiet leaders who set a good example. And setting a good example is just as important as taking charge. So yeah, anyone can be a leader.
So I can take over?
Sure.
All right, next we have agility, perhaps my favorite essential skill. So that means being adaptable and ready for changing circumstances. A lot of times when we talk about agility with our younger students especially, they think of physical agility, so they associate it with sports. But the way that we turn it for them is calling it mental agility, so being speedy with your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll explain to third graders.
Yes.
Then hand in hand with that is perseverance, so never giving up. That's how we usually define that. And last but not least, networking, which often is a little tricky for some of our students. It's one that I struggled with when I was in grade school because it seemed a little more intimidating than what it actually is. But all that it means for us is using your resources, calling your friends and supporters, turning acquaintances into supporters with whatever you're trying to accomplish in life. So as you can probably tell, all of these skills go hand in hand. We have a lot of activities that we say are like perseverance activity, but really we end up reviewing all the essential skills and how they all tie into them.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll say about networking is when I ask kids, they often tell me like, internet. Internet is a network. So it's about connections, and so connecting people, connecting devices, that's all part of networking. So, you want to go to college. That's great. But how are you going to get there? And we do want to acknowledge that college might not be the right path for everyone, or a four-year degree might not be the right path for everyone. But if it is something you decide that what you want to do requires some college, we're going to share some tips and the essential skills on how you get there. So the first one is choosing a college. So you've decided you want to go to college, that's great, but we need to set a goal of choosing a college. And so that's going to look a little different depending on where you are in life. So sometimes it's just learning about different names of schools, using your network and talking to people about where they went to college. Ask all your teachers where they went to school. That's probably the easiest place to start. You can also ask family and family friends. Where did you go to college? Start learning about different names. So you've got a little bit of networking, a little bit of goal setting. And then, so once you've done that, then you kind of have to see what colleges have the programs that you want. So hopefully you maybe have an idea of what you want to go to school for.
But it's okay if you don't.
Yes, you can always change it. And so, do they have the program that you want? So then we're going to get into a little bit of research skills, maybe not an essential skill, but a very necessary skill. And start looking up what programs they offer. And let's see, you can start hearing about colleges as well if you're in high school from your guidance counselor. They often have resources about what schools students from your school have gone to before, and they can tell you about that. And so once you start getting an idea of what schools offer the programs you want, start looking at the other things. So you're not in college in classes all day. There are a lot more things that are going on. There are other ways that you need to spend your time. So looking into extracurriculars that they can offer, or clubs, or if you're an athlete, do they have the sport that you want to play, or a club version of that sport? So there are lots of different steps. So starting to narrow your search is going to be a lot of goal setting, because you have to figure out what it is that you want, and how you're going to get there. And then agility comes into play a lot. So starting to think creatively about what your life is going to be like and what kinds of things you're going to want to fill it with. So those extracurriculars, the location. If you're a really big skier, you probably want to find a school that has skiing around.
That has winter.
That has winter, right? And then thinking about size and location. Do you want to move far away from home? Do you want to stay closer from home? Closer to home? Either of those is fine. It's just thinking about what you personally would value. And size. So one of the schools that I looked at when I was on my college search was Becker College in Worcester, Mass. and the college is only 2,000 students. My high school was 1,000 students, so I thought I kind of wanted something smaller, but I got there and I realized that, gosh, I'm kind of gonna know everyone in about a month. So personally, I realized that size was something I needed a little bit of a bigger school. And I knew you had a different experience.
Yeah, which is why the two of us are the one doing this. So when I was first looking at schools, I thought I wanted to go to Cornell, and I visited it, and I loved it because I love Ithaca, New York a lot. But then I visited Colgate and saw the difference between a giant school like Cornell, which has about 26,000 or something undergrad, and then Colgate had a very small fraction of that, and I just felt a lot more comfortable on a smaller campus. I knew I wanted to go to a smaller local art school after visiting Colgate. And yeah, I would second that whole size, location, distance thing, but also the environment of the school. So do you want to be in a small town? Do you want to be in a suburban area? Do you want to be in a city? Do you think you want to be in something different than where you grew up in? You might have to go visit to find out.
Yeah. So that's where that agility is coming in, is thinking ahead, because maybe you haven't lived in a big city before, but you think that that's what you want. And maybe it is. So I came from a really, really tiny town. And Burlington was big city for me. I know it's not generally considered big city, but I went from about like 7,000 people to 45,000 people. And I did end up really enjoying it. And I really liked that there was so much to do and just I could walk everywhere. I grew up having to drive everywhere, so I really liked that I could walk everywhere.
Also with the college search process, we had a bit of a different experience. So I was a very type A student in high school, and so I created a spreadsheet with all of these little criteria points and kept track of all of the schools that I had researched, because I felt like I was researching so many schools and I couldn't remember all the little details about each of them, and I didn't want to have to go back and check over and over again to remember why I did or didn't like that school. So I made a spreadsheet and started checking things off, seeing how far it was from my house and what programs it offered, all those kinds of things that were relevant to me at the time, and that is how I started making my list of colleges that I wanted to visit. Now I know many of you cannot visit schools in person, but there are other options. We run virtual tours, Tour Tuesdays, every once in a while. Your CFES Gear Up Fellows can also run tours of the schools that they went to, or schools that are our partner schools, or any school that you're interested in learning more about. Your CFES Gear Up Fellow can help.
And a lot of schools have 360 tours or live tours that you can join. They often offer student-led tours that are virtual now. So definitely just start doing your research. And say, okay, I really want to look into this school, but I want to see what campus is like. And so the other thing I want to mention as an essential skill that's going to be really important is perseverance as it relates to advocating for yourself. So becoming your number one supporter. So you go to school all day, you're in high school, you're going to classes all day, you get home, maybe you have sports, or maybe you just have homework. You then still have to get the energy and get yourself together to keep persevering, not giving up, not just going and watching Netflix, and researching schools and visiting schools. So it is a little bit more energy, but it's really going to pay off in the end.
I also think that because you can't visit schools in person, although maybe you're starting to be able to now, it becomes a lot more important to actually talk to people who have worked at the school or attended the school. So a lot of schools that offer virtual tours also offer Zoom sessions, whether it's a one-on-one or a group session with either an admissions representative or a current student. So those are really important. Sometimes a little intimidating, but once you do one or two, you start to get used to it. And I would definitely recommend reaching out to current students, especially current students who have similar interests and similar backgrounds as you, to see if it's something that would be a good fit.
Yeah, and so now we're networking. Going to those virtual visits where you're talking to other people is a really great way, because maybe you meet your roommate that you live with freshman year. I don't know. There are different options. And so my college search was, again, a bit more casual, a little bit more type B, I guess you could say. So I really listened to my guidance counselor. So I had done a little bit of my own research about what majors schools are offering majors, and then my guidance counselor was like, hey, I really think you might enjoy this school. So I visited UMaine Orono, and sort of informally visited the University of Vermont. Again, I'm from Vermont, so I just kind of drove there a bunch of times. so I was already a little bit familiar, but I really only had 2 schools, and what came down to it for me was the financial aid piece. But
you are stepping ahead a little bit.
yes, let's talk a little bit more about applying to college. So now we found the college. How do we apply and hopefully get in?
So the general advice I will give you is not the advice that I took. I applied to one school, Colgate, but I applied early decision, so that's a very important distinction. So early decision means that when I applied early and got in, the decision was binding. So because I got in, I had decided that I was going to go. The other less binding version of that is early action, which I believe you did.
Which I did, yes, for the University of Vermont.
So that's where you can apply to a bunch of different schools. It just shows that you are extra interested in the school. And both of them increase your acceptance rate, generally speaking, because schools want to fill their enrollment goals. They give preference to people who they're convinced are definitely going to attend their school. So that is what I did for Colgate, but generally speaking, you should apply to a mix of safety schools, target schools, and reach schools. So safety school is a school that, based on your GPA and their acceptance rate and other admissions factors that would be relevant in their admissions decision, that you would definitely get into. You are not at all concerned about getting into the school. Target school would be one that is right on par. So a lot of schools will post, or you can find this information online, the average standardized test score range or average GPA range of students who get into that school. So that's how you figure out whether it's a safety target or a reach school. And you should definitely apply to reach schools, because oftentimes students underestimate themselves, especially students from low-income backgrounds, and assume that reach schools are reach schools when maybe they're not, maybe they're a target school. And you also never know. The way that people decide whether or not you get into certain schools is I don't want to say arbitrary, but because things like essays are weighted so heavily, it kind of just depends on the year. Maybe you would have gotten in last year and would get in this year, and you never know. So you might as well apply to schools that are complete dream schools that you think you won't get into.
Definitely. So I would say, I guess, at minimum 3 schools. I probably wouldn't do more than 8 or 10 schools.
No, especially because you do usually have to pay.
Yes, a lot of college applications have a fee associated with them. I was fortunate. Some schools will do either a financially based waiver, or sometimes they're just doing a quick sponsorship thing. So the University of Vermont sponsored just a lot of Vermont students, so I had to apply for free. But I think it's $40 to $60 oftentimes, sometimes even more.
Yeah. But that's also why it's really important to meet with an admissions rep, because I didn't even realize at the time I happened to meet with an admissions rep at my high school for Colgate, and she didn't even tell me to the end that because I met with her, she was going to waive my application fee.
Yeah, so there are ways to apply to college and have it be affordable.
So paying for college?
Paying for college. College is often thought of as a very, very expensive thing, and it can be. So there are these sticker prices, so it's the cost that when you looked up how much it goes to go to Colgate University.
It says $80,000 a year.
$80,000 a year. The reality is, if you set some goals and you persevere and you network, you will be able to reduce that cost by a lot. So there are 3 main ways that people pay for college. They are loans, scholarships, and grants. So scholarships and grants are both, I would say, free money in a sense. They are not money that you have to pay back. You usually have to do certain things to qualify for them. Sometimes it's an essay, sometimes it's your grades, it's other things. So there are things that you just qualify for or can apply for that are going to give you free money that you don't have to pay back. And loans are the money that you do have to pay back.
Oftentimes, though, grants and scholarships are need-based aid. So
yes,
my biggest grant, which was $55,000 a year, was just money from Colgate, because they are one of the schools, which you can look up which schools are, that cover 100% of demonstrated financial need.
Yes, so financially based need. That's another way that you can get grants. So loans can either be federal or private, or state. No.
Yeah, it depends on the state.
It depends on the state. But those are loans. They're going to have different interest rates. Federal loans are definitely have lower interest rates, which means they're not going to accrue as much interest, so you're going to end up paying a little bit less when you have to pay them back. But so there are different ways. We both took out student loans. We both took out private and federal loans. But we also both got scholarships and grants. So we did not pay the price that it said when you look up how much it goes to that school. We definitely did not pay that price. We got a lot of different help, and we advocated for ourselves and found other ways to get that financial aid.
One thing I want to add, because a lot of at least all of our Gear Up schools are New York schools. So if you go to a SUNY school, State University of New York or CUNY, you can apply for the Excelsior Scholarship if your family makes less than $125,000 a year combined. And so that's free tuition for any SUNY school. And there are even some private schools that will match that. I can't name any of them off the top of my head, but I know that that's true. And so that's really, really helpful and important. You will not have to pay tuition as long as you apply. So that's another thing that you really have to keep track of in terms of goal setting and perseverance, because if you miss the deadline, you won't get it. You can try to appeal, but it's quite a process. So my sister goes to SUNY Cortland, and she qualifies for the Excelsior Scholarship. She has to apply every year. Things are a little bit tricky now because there's a minimum credit requirement, and you also have to stay a New York State resident for the number of years that you used the Excelsior Scholarship. So it's a bit mixed up now because some of her credits she couldn't finish last year due to COVID, but it's still worth persevering and calling people in the financial aid office, student accounts, Excelsior, and eventually she will get her scholarship back.
Yes.
So don't give up, even if it seems like you're not going to get it, you can get it.
Yes. More of the federal and state aid, the FAFSA, and then state-specific aid. So in Vermont, it's the Vermont Student Assistance Corporation. In New York, it's called TAP. I'm not quite sure what it stands for. But so Tuition Assistance Program.
That's a guess. I don't know.
So the FAFSA is free federal aid if you apply. So it's another one of those things, if you apply, if you meet that deadline, if you remember that that is a goal that you have, you can get free money. And so you fill it out with some tax information. It opens October 1st, I believe. And you can apply every year. You have to apply every year, actually. And then that's how you can get some of those grants. Can come through FAFSA.
You can also apply before you know where you're going to school.
Yes.
Which a lot of seniors in high school don't realize.
Yep. And then once you're on the FAFSA, it will often ask you right at the end, do you want to transfer this to your state aid organization? And then you just hit yes, and then you'll get some more state aid. So it's one of the things, you have to remember it, but it will be really, really helpful if you do.
All right, so going back to enlisting your network of supporters when you are applying to school. So there's a lot of different components to applying to college, and mostly we're specifically talking about four-year schools. One of the things is the admissions essay. Almost all the schools you apply to are part of the Common App. I think there's like 800 schools probably use the Common App, and so it will be one question. You choose from a list of 6, and you can answer the question. Some colleges will have supplemental essays, 1 to 6 of them, depending on the school. Some schools won't have them at all. But because standardized testing is starting to be phased out a little bit, hopefully, but especially because of COVID, your essay is probably going to be weighted a little bit more, as well as your GPA. Everything is going to come together. So what's really important about the essay is getting lots and lots of people to read it. Maybe having a brainstorm session with the people closest to you, whether that's your friends, family, teachers, about what kinds of life experiences you could turn into an essay. Because a lot of times you live your life, but the people around you probably have some really good ideas that you can use that you don't even realize could turn into something really unique about you that you could write about. So you should have your friends read it, you should have your English teacher read it, you should have your parents read it, whoever can help you out, whoever's in your network. And going along with getting your teachers involved is you will likely need some letters of recommendation, depending on the school you're applying to, anywhere from 1 to 3 of them. And so it's really important to start relationship building with teachers and coaches and whoever else is in your life, whether it's a boss, any adult who can speak to how you would contribute to a campus community.
So this is where that networking and leadership comes in, and I would even argue teamwork. The college application process is a long one. There are a lot of steps to it. Having a good team of friends who can help you do it, who will remind you about deadlines that maybe you forgot about, or you can remind them of things that they forgot about. So having a group of friends who also value going to college can be really helpful, because then you're just gonna have support at all times. You could be the leader of your friend, and maybe you help all your friends make spreadsheets and checklists. And right, again, networking with your teachers. Letters of recommendation can feel a little intimidating to ask for, I guess, because you're going up to someone and saying, hey, you know me pretty well.
Say good things about me.
Would you write a letter saying all the good things in it for me? And the thing is, people really do want to.
And they've done it many, many times before.
Yes. All of your teachers have written the letters of recommendation for someone at some point, and I know that they would be happy to do it for you as well. And that getting in that habit of building relationships with teachers is going to be really helpful once you get to college. So your advisors and your professors are going to be some pretty big people in your life, because they're going to be helping you stay on track to graduate. They're going to be helping you find other resources if you need resources on campus, whether those are academic resources or personal resources. And so getting comfortable with just showing up in someone's office and saying, hey, can we talk? Because I have questions and I think that you can answer them. I guess I felt a little bit intimidated in college, and I didn't go to as many office hours, and I kind of regret that now. I really wish that I had stayed in better contact with the teachers who I classed with.
That's actually one of the biggest reasons I wanted to go to a small school, is because I did realize early on how important it was to have close relationships with professors, and so I was like, I cannot go to a big school, I cannot have classes in lecture halls, that would not work for me, and so that's part of the reason I chose Colgate. But kind of on that train of thought, what's something you wish you knew when you were applying to school?
Something I wish I knew when I was applying to school. One, that it would be so helpful to have these relationships with teachers. And I would also say, like, exploring all of the other things that a college has to offer. I feel like I focused a lot on the majors, and that's how I made my list, is like, how competitive is this program, and is it ranked in the country? And so actually when I went and visited the University of Maine, I got there and I realized I don't like the surrounding town at all. It was really tiny, it was really spaced out, I couldn't walk to anything. Everyone seemed to be locals and know each other, so I felt very out of place. And so I think remembering that you are more than just a student when you go to college, and that there are a lot of other pieces in your life that you have to remember to have there for you when you're not in class. I think that would. What about you?
A few things. I wish I didn't spend so much money on standardized tests. Can't go back on that. Also, applying for scholarships before you're a senior in high school. I didn't realize you could do that. I did get myself together for senior year and applied to a bunch of local scholarships, which I would definitely emphasize. The pool of applicants, the number of people applying is going to be a lot smaller. It's also pretty likely that the people deciding who gets the scholarship probably know you, especially in a small community, and so that's really important. And you're just like more likely to get those, and usually you get them right at graduation, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So, quick review of the essential skills and a couple places that they apply. Goal setting. The whole thing. Going to college, applying to college, deciding which college once you do get into a college, or maybe a couple colleges. So those are goals, and those are things you are setting a specific thing you want to accomplish and how you're going to get there. Teamwork. Working with your friends, working with your family members to get all of it done. I recommend going on virtual college tours with your friends. Get some popcorn, do a little movie night kind of thing, and go on virtual tours. So teamwork, using your supporters. And networking, right? Networking is also using all those other people, those mentors, those coaches, those teachers, your family, whoever it is that supports you. Leadership. You're kind of being a leader because you're taking charge of your future. Hopefully you're helping others on their college search. That would be a really great way to be a leader. Using agility, thinking ahead, to what you might want, what might work well for you, and some problem solving, saying, okay, I know that maybe I can't financially afford college. What are my other options for affording college? That's being agile, problem solving, and persevering. Again, we know that you are busy high school students, and it's going to take a little bit more energy to get all of this done at the end of the day. And so we know that's not always the easiest thing to do. Happens to us too, on our jobs and college searches. And so, you know, keep trying, don't give up, persevere.
Yeah. So we are also part of your network, especially the CFES Gear Up family. So my email is claire@brilliantpathways.org. If you were part of the Willsboro community, it's ccarson@willsborocsd.org.
And my email is rose@brilliantpathways.org or rbreen@willsboro.csd.org. Sorry about that. And yeah, so please reach out to us if you have any questions at all, you need any support at all, bounce ideas off of.
We also know alumni at a lot of different schools in the area, so we could probably find you someone to talk to.
Absolutely.
Take you on virtual college tours, whatever you need.
Yes.
So thank you for tuning in. We are going to head out and have a real bonfire.
Yes.
It's super nice outside.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your